On this episode, we talk about video games based on movies, not movies inspired by video games.
Right.
Video games. Other way around. Is that clear? Did I say that right?
Oh, yeah, perfect.
Welcome to Save Every Universe. My name is Alec Garcia. I am a whiny frat boy who must learn the way of the jungle to rescue my friends and defeat the deadly Voss Montenegro.
That's just you in real life.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did I get it?
Learn the ways of the jungle? I've been trying to do that since
Yeah, and you were such a frat boy.
I know.
Back in the day.
Yeah. Tank tops, dude. Sun's out, guns out. I don't think people say that anymore. Sun's out, guns out. That was probably our... Anyway, go ahead.
I don't know. No, I think they wear it
Some
on shirts,
douchebag
ironically.
out there, he's wearing that this summer.
Yeah,
He's been,
probably.
waiting all winter.
Maybe he wore it through the winter. All right. My name is Robbie. I'm a squid-like humanoid.
He wore it... Sorry, go ahead.
My name is Robbie. I'm a squid-like...
Under every sweater, he has the sun's out, guns out tank top.
Yeah, dude.
That's the
He's
ultimate.
a true believer. Sorry. My name is Robbie. I'm a squid-like humanoid who has evolved into a new form of life and now likes to use my ink to throw down in turf wars all over the city.
That one's going to come to me.
You'll get it. That's a low ball.
Is it?
I think so.
Interesting. Who were you last time?
So you were actually pretty close. You said Mario Kart. I was Smithy from Super Mario RPG.
Oh, okay.
Star Road. He shatters it. Remember the
Was
sword
Star
goes
Ro-
into Bowser's castle?
Yeah, okay.
But it's
Wow.
Star Road, not Rainbow Road.
Good for me.
I mean, you at least got the right character.
Yeah. Well,
Ish.
Star Road, Rainbow Road, that's not in that many things. I had to. I don't know. Whatever.
Yeah.
And last time I was Connor from Detroit Become Human. You
Yeah.
guessed Blade Runner 2049. It's actually like a really similar character. He's
I
an
knew who you
android
were,
who
though.
hunts down deviants in it.
But the way you described it, it actually sounded like the Blade Runner 2049.
Actually, as I wrote that out, I was like, oh, okay, so this could be... It's hard to... I really, that's a good character for that humans, androids, not being accepted type period of near future. Like, how are you going to not have that
Yeah,
character?
it was a good time in our history.
It will have
It
been
will
a good
have
time
been.
in our history.
It'll have been the best time.
Yeah, we were talking a little bit before we started recording, and I just finished a playthrough of Detroit, and holy crap, that is a very, very good game. If you like story and you like good characters, even if the choose your own adventure thing is not totally your bag, Detroit is worth trying. At least go check out the demo for free. The quick time events, I guess you don't get this in the demo, but the action quick time events are great, and they're much more challenging.
Yeah, you said they were more fast-paced, too, right?
Yeah, and a lot more involved. You'll choose your paths as you're running to chase somebody and stuff. They're much more involved and much more action-packed than something like a Telltale game or most other choose your own adventure type games that I've played. It was, there was jaw on the floor, super exciting. It's a very, very good game, start to finish.
What happens if you have a quick decision and you don't do anything?
There are times where it's do nothing or your bar will just run out. I think I only let that happen once where you're walking away and you can ask for help from somebody. I was looking at something else on the screen or something and the bar ran out and my character just didn't say anything, and so I didn't get that piece of information that I could have gotten from that character, and I went back and replayed that scene after I had beaten it just to see what happened. In the particular instance I did it didn't have a large impact on what I did, but I imagine it could in other parts. There's a part where you're interrogating a deviant as Connor, the android cop, and I think there are opportunities where you could not say anything in the moment and it wouldn't, I don't know, that would be interesting. But yeah, so you do have that option to
You need to
not
go
act
all the way through it now as a pacifist.
and just do nothing. A pacifist run.
Mute run.
So there are a few moments where it makes you choose and there's no time limit on it. Really big moments where it's oh my God. I sat there for a second. I don't want to do either of these. This is going to be a really hard choice.
Nice.
I hope I make the right... Man, it was just gripping. By the time it was done, I wanted to stand up and clap.
I don't think your wife would appreciate that.
Just in the middle of the night as I was playing it 2 a.m, standing ovation. Yeah, she probably wouldn't have. Yeah, what have you on the dock today, Robbie? What are we talking about?
I think that about wraps it up.
See you guys next time.
So this week we are, as you probably clearly understood from the intro.
Let me interrupt you real quick.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Patreon. We've gotten some support on Patreon lately.
That's right.
This was in my intro note. I just want to say thank you. It's really crazy to me that we can just sit here and talk about video games every week and people like it and believe in it enough to give us $1 a month even.
Yeah.
It blows my... That's your money. You work to earn that money and you gave us some of it to talk about video games. That blows my mind, and I just want to say thank you for supporting us. And if anyone else would like to do so as well, patreon.com/Save Every Universe. You can become a patron.
Yeah, thank you a lot. Boss Charlie, I know, recently increased his pledge, which was really cool of him.
Yeah,
I know
appreciate it, man.
He's vying for the biggest fan spot.
Yeah.
Thank you, boss.
I think you've got it at this point.
And we got a new donor this month, Pirate Chef.
Yeah, he wrote in on our last episode talking about Detroit and those kinds of things. He's been active lately.
Yeah, so thank you so much to those guys and to everybody for listening. And yeah, if you want to pledge and help support us, you can do that on patreon.com.
Yep, /Save Every Universe.
So this week, as I was saying before I was so rudely interrupted.
One more thing, just kidding, go ahead.
We are actually talking about video games that are based on movies. This was something that Alec had brought up a few weeks ago because we did movies based on video games, which is different.
They're generally
obviously
bad.
Right, and then Alec got very obsessed just off mic about
I can't remember what episode we were talking about.
And why did games like Goldeneye succeed? So today we're going to kind of break that down and dig into it. What do you have on the docket?
No, that was it. That was kind of like the genesis of this whole conversation was why was Goldeneye so good? And most video games that are based directly off of movies generally aren't that good, or they're okay. You know what I mean? They're not like, holy crap, game-changing, massive, like record-breaking successes like Goldeneye was. And so, yeah, we just got thinking about that whole thing, like sort of the good, bad, and ugly of that whole realm. And there's not that many anymore. Not as many as there used to be, it doesn't seem like. And why is that?
Well, so I think if we're going to talk about this, it would be a mistake not to start at the beginning with the E.T., the famous E.T. game for Atari that got pushed out. Have you gotten a chance to play it or seen any videos of it?
I have seen, I've seen little snippets of it, and I've seen the pictures of them digging them like out of the landfill.
It should be a whole
Mexico.
episode in and of itself. And actually, I know a guy who went to the digging up of it. We may have him on. It's a horrible game. Pits you fall into without even seeing them. It doesn't make any sense. Has nothing to do with the movie. It's bad. It's painful.
A lot of them are bad. Why do you think that is?
So when I was starting to look these up and like just looking at past ones, it was painful. Like it was not a pleasant trip down memory lane.
Do you remember the Fight Club? I had forgotten about this, but I think I bought it because I was such a big fan of the movie.
That sounds right.
And it was like this horrible fighting game. They like kind of took some mechanics and they slapped Tyler Durden on there and stuff, and it was absolute garbage.
It wasn't even a good like Streets of Fury.
I like cringed at the fact that like I handed money over for that. It made me sad for myself.
Yeah, even though they've gone away, even when I was looking them up for this episode, and I was surprised how many like current ones are still coming out on PC and on 3DS. And there's been some actually decent ones on PC, like semi-decent. I heard a lot of good things about the Back to the Future ones.
Oh, okay.
And even heard some of the voice actors came back. Like I think Michael J. Fox and Christopher Lloyd did the voices. And I've heard I think it's a point and click. It's one of those I've been meaning to go back to, but it's hard. It's hard for me to like. My wife's been like, you should play.
Those came out though, like around the time of the movies.
No, those have come out like in the 2010s.
See, I could see that working actually though, just because there's like enough separation that you could sort of reimagine it as a game on your own terms without having the pressure of releasing side by side with the film.
That could be. I mean, there's a game coming out called Rise of the Gunter, and it's a Ready Player One VR. I don't know. It's not the Oasis. It's like a the PvP world in the movie?
Yeah.
That's like all it is.
Okay.
Right? That's what it looks like. To me, it's kind of strange that they're even using Ready Player One as their basis for it.
Right.
Like, I don't quite understand that. It's not like they can incorporate...
I think the brand value thing clearly is there for getting some sales. Dumbasses like me at times of really being into something buy things like the Fight Club fighting game that's just awful. But I think you can get away with just writing brand value to a certain degree.
Okay, but something like Ready Player One and the Oasis. The Oasis is cool because it incorporates everything you can imagine. But this game can't do that. Like, it has to just be generic. Like, it's not like they can put World of Warcraft and Halo and... That's something that made the Oasis so cool.
So I think it'll depend. We've talked in the past about like how focus can really save a game. Like really hyper focusing on, okay, we can't do everything, and just admitting that from the outset, and then like laser focusing on, but we're going to get this right and make this really good. It won't be the experience of tapping into the Oasis, but I haven't seen anything on it, so I don't know,
it's a VR game, and it's a PvP VR game.
Okay.
So that's
interesting.
Not heavily tread ground, right? I mean, so maybe if it's a good enough game, it'll succeed. So let's talk about that. Like, why don't they work?
So I think you just hit on something though. So like if that did do well, I think part of why it didn't is that it's not like now you're playing as Wade Wilson, the character from Wade Watts from Ready Player One. Yeah, Wade Wilson's something else.
Wade Wilson is
They talk about that in the movie and the book. That his dad named him to sound like it's
the alliteration
superhero.
Yeah, because all superhero names like Peter Parker.
Yeah, so he's Wade Watts. I think that's right.
Right.
Is that you're not like playing the story of Wade Watson, Ready Player One. Like, that's a really hard path to go down because you
Right.
get directly compared to the film, and film and video games are so different from the interactive aspect. I think that's always the kiss of death, is trying to reproduce a movie as a playable thing. I don't think that works.
Right. If you look back at some of the worst offenders, you'll see that there are games where they like loosely tried to drape the setting over a different type of game.
Yeah.
And it doesn't seem like they really thought out, like, is this the appropriate genre for this setting? Instead, they just tried to bank on, it's a Lion King game and the kids are going to love playing it. Actually, I kind of liked the Lion King game for Super Nintendo, but whatever.
From Super Nintendo.
Yeah,
dude, I loved that game, actually.
But just as an example.
That wasn't even on my list, but yeah.
Toy Story? I don't know. I'm trying now suddenly,
Lion King was good.
Lion King was pretty good. Actually, the Disney games, if you go back and look at them, a lot of them are all right. So I think we'll go back to my Batman Forever game. It was horrible. I mean, it was painful. And I sent you that YouTube video after the episode. It's
the one where it had like real people's photographs almost like badly animated into a side scroller, right? Okay.
It's bad. It was 2-player. It was horrible. Yeah. I think Robin's in like his old tights uniform too for some reason, even though that's not what he was wearing in the Val Kilmer movie. So anyway, that's a good example of like, they draped it over a side scroller beat 'em up, and there was little thought of like, is this how we should do Batman? Should we do it like a different type of game?
And they really are different art forms though, I think is the thing, right? Like, you can't just drape a thing over like a mechanic. I think you can do that. Like, I was reading this article called "What Happened to All the Video Games Based on Movies" by Amelia Tate on News Statesman. Yeah. Newsstatesman.com. And she was talking about how like you'll see stuff, like it's a thing for kids because so many kids have tablets now, and that's where a lot of these like game-based movies went. But it's like the Match 3 Bejeweled type thing, but it's like it with a Frozen skin draped over it and stuff. And video games have gotten so much more sophisticated that you can't really get away with that without it being just like a cheap knockoff mobile game.
Right. You certainly can't for $60.
Right. Yeah.
I think
that's what I mean. For big mainstream
for
releases, like, you can't do that anymore.
Right. My kids like really love this Rescue Bots side scroller fighting game. Yeah. It's not particularly groundbreaking, but it was, I think it was like $3.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm like, yeah, big deal. I don't mind them doing that. If they were like, here's a $50 Rescue Bots game.
That's the way to get away with the skin drape. Like the Bejeweled Match 3 thing, like everybody kind of loves that at some point in their life, right? Like everyone's played something like that they
have
shamefully got sucked into, right?
I mean, that's what you want to tell yourself.
Who hasn't played Candy Crush a little bit?
What is Candy Crush?
Whatever, dude. So throw a skin on that. It's a mechanic that works. It's easy. It's cheap to develop. I mean, you could apply that to Fortnite. Like, why can't there that thing that they've put together that is the battle royale shit? It's so cheap to develop, and people are willing to throw money at it.
With all the releases and the announcements coming out, they are starting. There's going to be a million contenders to that until people don't like it or are tired of it, and then it's going to probably.
But that's not the same thing as making like a really good adapting something from a film and making it good in its own right as a video game.
Right.
In some, because they are different art forms. In some ways, it is sort of like taking a really great painting and then going to a sculptor and be like, turn this into a great sculpture made out of marble. It's like completely different things that with artists who practice different skill sets.
Right. Now, I do think if the gameplay is tight, it can be pretty successful, right? Yeah. So like the Lion King, did have that in my notes. Do you remember the Super Star Wars games?
Yes, dude.
Those are pretty fun.
They have it on the PlayStation Store, I just found out. I almost bought it the other day, yeah.
I'm not like, it follows a story, or I think there was a Hook game we used to play on Super Nintendo. Did you play that?
That sounds really familiar.
It was okay. Like, I mean, it wasn't horrible. It wasn't like E.T. where you're like falling into invisible pits or, it wasn't anything like that, but I don't know, like, it's not going to go on my list of best platformers of all time, but it's solid gameplay. And then as a kid, you're like, Star Wars game. I think back then that was good enough. I mean, kids were bugging their parents. Parents are like, Star Wars, kids like that, or Lion King. Mm-hmm. My kid can watch Lion King. Why not get him the video game? And I think some developers like Disney, and I don't actually know who made, I think it was a famous developer who made Super Star Wars.
It was like the Lucas Game Studio thing before that got shut down.
But even like Treyarch, when they made Spider-Man, though I think that goes into like maybe another category. Those were solid games with good mechanics.
Mm-hmm. But a lot of those, like Jurassic Park was on my list of some of my favorites. And like, I loved the movie. And then I remember renting the game and being like, this isn't like the movie at all. And then I really loved the game. And I think that seems to be one of those consistencies is when a developer says, this isn't a movie. It's going to be inspired by, it's going to be set in the same world, but it's not the movie. So here's what we're going to do. And with the Jurassic Park one, was like Dr. Grant got, lost in Jurassic Park and but the end level I remember was real similar. Like you go into the visitor center and there's the banners and the T-Rex and all that stuff. But the rest of the game was like not even close.
Well, you played as a raptor.
There was, you could play as a raptor. Yeah.
Which was like, I'm not sure. Were we supposed to be eating people?
Yeah, that's right. I remember eating the little compies.
That's all I remember eating too. But now I'm like, that's Jurassic Park. I
don't think I played that one that much. The Dr. Grant one was cool though. You had like all the different types of tranks and you'd get different grenades, and it was actually a pretty good little platformer. And it was really challenging.
Just a little side point here. Jurassic Park to me is a little weird. I had a friend point this out to me. The dinosaurs who are killing people are kind of the heroes. So who are you supposed to be rooting for?
That's true, huh? The blood-sucking lawyer, like when he gets eaten on the thing, like you're kind of happy about it a little bit.
Right, and the fat guy from Seinfeld.
Oh, he gets what he deserves from
He gets eaten by the spitter, and you're like rooting for people to die to raptors, and it's a little, if you think about it, it's a little confusing. Like, are we the villains?
That is interesting.
Are we going to go and like root for ourselves to die? It's kind of a strange thing.
Well, what's glorified is like the bond between Dr. Grant and nature, Dr. Grant and the animals, right?
Right, the animals are the heroes, and we're the villains.
Maybe we should make a movie podcast. We seem to be slipping into movie territory a lot lately.
Well, we keep doing movie-based video games and game-based movies. And anyway, that's a little bit of, I haven't been since thinking about that, I haven't been as excited. Like the new Jurassic one's coming out. I'm a little like, I don't know if I want to root for the humans to die. I've always
That's kind of how it is though, because it's the same thing with Chris Pratt. He's like sort of, his bond is with the raptor, and the bad guys are doing evil things. And
he's like the only good human.
Killing them is like a good thing.
He's like the only good human in the whole. You're rooting for everyone else to die.
Was King Kong like that? Like the original King Kong? It kind of was, because you had the woman who like bonded with the monkey, right?
Yeah, the humans are the villains.
Yeah, and like the evil corrupt who are bringing him over as like the side freak show thing are the bad guys. And when I don't know, that's an odd little.
So for those of you that go out, for those of you that go out and see Jurassic, just think you were playing as the raptor. That's not a coincidence on the Sega Genesis. It's because the dinosaurs are the good guys.
That was like, to be fair though, like that was kind of a novelty in that part of the game. I feel like the heart of the game was like playing as Dr. Grant and like surviving and all that stuff.
Was it? I mostly only remember playing as the raptor.
That's interesting.
I also only rented it. So moving on. What's interesting to me is, as far as like the drapery goes, but is a still solid game. I think Lego games have like carved out their own. They've created their own genre, and now they can do kind of the draping. Though they do a pretty good job. Some of them are more involved than others, but all Lego games, you know what you sign up for. But they created their own genre, and now they plug movies into that genre.
When you think of Lego, man, they really are an anomaly. They went from plastic building blocks to video games and movies, and like that's incredible.
And they still do plastic building blocks. They didn't leave it behind. So I think I want to bring up that point. Like Lego's kind of interesting to me in this framework because it is just draping the film setting, I think, on their genre, but they're very unique in that they created the genre.
Yeah, that's true.
And they create new ways of working within that. You have like force powers, and you have whatever if you're playing Star Wars. You have superpowers if you're playing Marvel or DC.
The reskin conversation in general is interesting too, though, because it's kind of when we talked about DLC, where like is DLC good or bad, and is it a money grab and all that stuff, and it kind of came down to when it's a game you don't like or something like that, you're like, oh, that's what a money grab and stuff. But it's like if it's a game you like, you will just throw money at it.
When I think Lego succeeds in that, if it's a creative universe you like, you're gonna like that Lego version of it.
And even though it's a reskin, any series in video games that goes on, it's just a reskin. Like they find out their formula that works for that story and that type of gameplay, and they reskin it
without changing it up too much.
But the same is true in Hollywood. Like a lot of the Marvels, it's like you like that character and stuff, but they're following a formula to some degree. And the less you notice it's a formula, the better they're doing. But they really are still all following the same formula. So I think movies and video games in that way are similar. They're
similar. It's not that they're the same formula though.
No, not the same formula, but they follow sort of that same pattern of once they find a hit, they're going to sort of reskin it.
And I think like along that same point, I think if a story, just because it's good in a movie, it's not good in a video game. It's completely different beats. It's completely different pacing. And I think, especially in the past, people did not figure that out. Right? They were like, oh, this will go great. Like Simba rolling through the desert, and like, you had to fight a lot more hyenas in the game for that to be exciting. If you would have just been rolling through the desert eating bugs, like the real movie, for 2/3 of the movie, that would have, 2/3 of the game, that would have been horrible. And I think there's like a weird pacing issue or a weird storytelling issue. And we've discussed this in like just our video games art and storytelling in general. Like, I think that failure is why so so many of these movie-based video games are horrible.
I would agree with that. And I think a good game designer who's hired, right, to be like, hey, we want to do a game based on this movie, knows how to be like, okay, here's what this movie is, and we can't do that. I think like that's step one, it seems like.
Right.
We can't do that shot for shot carbon copy. It's impossible. Let's not try.
Right.
Like that's what happened with Spider-Man 2 when they were supposed to release it in time with one of the new movies that was coming out. They're like, we can't do that, so here's what we're going to do instead.
Yeah.
I think that's step one.
You know, I've also wondered if another failing of past video games is maybe the game designers didn't know who they were creating the game for. I think there's an assumption that the people who liked the movies will like the game, age-wise, demographic-wise, whatever, and I think that's a mistake. I think there's some overlap. Kids like Lion King, kids will play the video game, but that's not like necessarily true. Or it could be that they made a game that was like more difficult or too easy for the age-based of kids that are going to play that game.
Right.
And it's a total flop. Or, well, you know, this is a Pixar movie, and maybe a lot of kids who can't read yet are watching Pixar, but we put a ton of text in the damn thing.
Right.
And only 13-year-olds who are kind of trying to get past that. I mean, this is just, I actually watched Toy Story when I was 13, but you get what I mean. Like, I think there was like a lack of who are we making this game for? It was just the movie's big, so we got to make a game for it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. So I think, on that note, like if step one was we can't make video carbon copy, step two is sort of like what we talked about in the Shadow of the Colossus episode is like boiling it down to like, who is the audience? And then what are the key things that we have to get right so that even though it's not the movie, people walk away feeling like, oh, I felt like Dr. Grant lost in Jurassic Park. Like if you get that right, it doesn't really matter, that the storyline or the world, the level design fits the movie. It can't, right? Like you can get away with a lot when you get those key things right of feel like Dr. Grant, web slinging feels like I'm Spider-Man. Like that kind of, you got to get those key things right and not try to carbon copy over.
Right. So games that have done it well, for me at least, and we both played it together, Spider-Man 2 for Xbox. Yeah. Well, we played it on Xbox, was awesome because you were web slinging, you felt like a superhero, you were doing these big patterns of movement. Goldeneye, which is the one that kind of triggered all this, right?
Yeah.
Goldeneye is good, I think, because it's a good shooter. Like, it's a revolutionary shooting game. It revolutionized multiplayer. It did so many things right. Thinking back on it, like, I think I forgot I was playing a James Bond movie-based title often. Like, it did the music. I think I kept the James Bond theme, but I think it's pretty easy to forget that it's specifically Goldeneye the movie, which is a great movie.
Well, because they worked in other characters, especially for multiplayer, like Odd Job and Jaws and, like, all these other things that were not in Goldeneye at all, but, like, you...
Were all the levels even in the movie?
Yeah, so the level structure of Goldeneye basically was the movie, but
I mean the multiplayer maps.
Oh no, they had like they had stuff from all the different all the different James Bond movies. Yeah.
So I think it worked kind of like what you're saying, right? Because they set out and went, this needs to be a good game, and it was Rare, right, that made it. Which they're a really good developer,
right?
And I think it's because they set out to make a good game and then tied in Goldeneye story elements.
They got a lot right though, and they did things that no one else had done. They actually did innovate in the space.
Yeah,
I was I was like watching some old footage and stuff, and you remember you could actually like shoot. The guys would run to sound the alarms, and you would have to shoot the guy, and then you could shoot the alarm and blow up the alarm so they couldn't sound it again.
Right.
All, like that wasn't in shooters before that. Like this was around the time of Half-Life 1, and so stuff like shooting light, or remember when you'd go in the vents in the very first level and you could shoot the hat off the guy? That type, like that sounds so stupid, but like that type of hit detection in a first-person shooter, especially like on a console, which was unheard of because PC was the only other.
How many times have console games like revolutionized before PC?
So like hit detection and sound, like the sounds of the bullets. If you go back and watch old James Bond movies, there's a particular like the way the guns sound and the way the bullets have that cheesy ricochet sound. They got that right.
Oh, I can close my eyes. I know all the sounds like without even having to watch a video because it was like the
soundtrack was great.
The sound of picking up body armor.
That's right.
Up, the breathing when your health is low,
and
it's
when you'd get killed in multiplayer and the blood. That was another like the animation of it was like really like a definitive. You just got killed after a long slapping showdown with somebody or something.
The golden guns.
Yeah, that satisfaction of death of killing somebody or getting killed or whatever is like not even a lot of modern PvP games do it in that way where it's like true. And now it's like usually you're just like, oh, now you're dead, wait to respawn. And
it wasn't particularly gory either.
No,
I mean, the blood kind of came down the screen, but it wasn't like no, you're definitely right. Paintball mode was awesome too.
Oh, that's right, I forgot about that.
You could do like I remember doing like paintball and infinite ammo, and we'd write arrows and messages to each other on the wall. wall. Like,
all the core stuff was there. The sound, the feel, the levels, the characters. It felt like James Bond without being like, no, it's GoldenEye, like you're saying. But they did a ton of stuff that old era of games had, of like really cool Easter eggs. Do you remember how you could pull out double guns, and then if you switched it and then tapped A or whatever, you could mismatch your guns so that you could have like, you would have the double clubs, which was like allowed or whatever, and then you'd switch it and you'd have like an AK-47 and the little Dustbuster Dostoevsky pistol or whatever. And they just, the developers put all kinds of cool stuff in there to discover that just added to your joy of playing this game over and over. Flat out, like you said, it wasn't just that it was based on a cool James Bond movie. It was a damn good game.
It was a really good game. And not to be all crotchety, but it's kind of cool because it was a time when you couldn't patch it. So if we were bugging it and doing weird shit with it that they didn't intend, they couldn't be like, well, that's not how the game's supposed to be played, and patch it, right?
Yeah. It was just
a playground. It became part of it, because what you're describing almost sounds like a glitch.
Yes.
Like, I feel like if somebody would have figured that out in Destiny 2, it would have been like patched in a day.
They would have turned off the Rat King.
Right. Yeah. They would have just turned it off. This gun is not available.
Currently unavailable.
But
bastards.
like back then it was just, you worked within that. And if you didn't know how to do the glitch, you figured it out.
And that was part of that grapevine joy of like sharing knowledge, like over at a friend's house playing a bunch of GoldenEye or whatever.
Whoa, how'd you do that?
Z and then tap, 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 and then...
Yeah. Wasn't there one about throwing proxy bombs, and if you press the buttons right, you could insta explode?
In the air or something?
Like they never...
We had
you didn't have to switch to your remote.
Ones.
Yeah. There was a way to instantly... You could just chuck them and blow them up without like having to switch.
Yeah.
Because I remember using that a lot. Where it was like throwing fireballs. It was so badass. Or like laying traps for people. Like you'd figure out where all the hiding spots were.
Yes.
And somebody would like crawl up into the vents and there'd just be a stack of mines right there.
Yep.
Oh man.
Yeah, you would like, you'd shoot around intentionally sort of missing someone to chase them up into somewhere. And,
Not even going for the kill. Like, it was
just
like this
messing
hunt.
with them. There was like a spastic run around, just having fun joy to that wasn't the controller mashing, throwing type stuff that PvP is now. You know, it's funny though, you can, those like teens react to things where it's like the younger generation that didn't grow up with that. Like, they're like, here, play this and see what you think. I think this is a testament to how good this game was. These kids had like probably never had played video games, but never picked up an N64 controller. Picked it up and were just having a ball playing GoldenEye. Cause how do you not have fun playing GoldenEye?
There was a source mod of it on Steam.
Yeah, that's right.
I ran around and played a little bit. It wasn't quite the same, but it was still pretty fun to go back.
I mean, seeing those levels though, all in like a better engine and stuff. That
was pretty satisfying.
They did a PlayStation version, an updated version of it at some point. Yeah, I think it was pretty well received. And I had multiplayer and the whole deal. It change of era, like it just didn't take the same way.
Right. Well, it's not revolutionary anymore. Right. Yeah, I think that's why they're so rare. Because rare. See what I did there?
Didn't you?
So the reason is just because I don't think developers took the time to make these polished, amazing games because it was like pressure release. It's got to be like the movie.
On that note, actually, I thought this was interesting from this article by Amelia Tate, talking about how like it used to be that like a Hollywood studio would be like, we're making this movie, it's gonna be big, we need you to make a game to go with it, as if they were like making t-shirts and toys too, like it's just a piece of merch in the lump with everything else. Right. And the developers were sort of on the timeline of the movie maker, right? And it was kind of like, we need it out by here, like if you need to cut corners, then just get it out the door. It was that sort of thing.
Right.
And now games are as big or bigger in some cases than movies. Like they'll do more in their first week or first month than a movie does in their first, like their opening weekend or opening month or whatever.
Yeah.
And so she makes the point in this article that it's actually sort of starting to flip the other way. Games are now so influential that Hollywood is now looking back at games where they're making like Angry Birds movies. And as of the writing of her article, there was like 60 movies that were slated that were like in pre-production or in production that were based on video games. So it's now going back the other way where a lot of the creativity and character creation and storytelling that's coming out of games, Hollywood is now following them. So I thought that was pretty interesting.
We'll see if they get it right though.
Yeah, I mean,
they still got a ways to go.
I don't know if they will, but I think the developers sort of being like on the clock, like on the watch of Hollywood time is gone because games have come into their own.
Yeah, that's nice. Do you have time to go through some of our worst experiences? Do you have any worsts?
I think one of the worst I ever played was Fight Club. As I went through the list, I had a couple favorites that I had played. I couldn't really think of that many that I played. I think I've learned to avoid them early on. Do you have some worst?
Well, yeah, I mean, because I kind of sometimes like we were pretty broke growing up, so if I got a game, I played
whatever. Yeah.
One of the early ones was Ghostbusters 2. It was rough, man. I don't even know if I ever beat it.
Was that on NES?
Yeah, it was on NES.
Yeah, okay, that sounds familiar.
It was hard. It was really rough. Oh god, it was rough. I don't know how else to say say. Ninja Turtles was like almost unbeatable.
That's true. I forgot about Ninja Turtles.
So hard.
A lot of
Everything
those
killed you.
old school platformer. See, I don't think I don't think they had time to like go through like testing rounds of like, hey, is this too hard or whatever.
Hey,
they were
can
just
you
like,
even make this
like, no, make it
jump
fucking hard
across?
and get it out the door.
Oh my god, they were brutal. And I think both of those had like vehicle sequences where you were like in the vehicle and good fucking luck beating. How many times I died in the turtle van or in the Ghostbusters vehicle? And that was like family members being like, oh, you like Ninja Turtles,
right?
You like Ghostbusters. Here's a game of it. And then me just being like, well, this is what I got to play, so I'm going to play it. In more recent times, there was a game called Lord of the Rings: War of the North that my brother got. It was a similar. I think his mother-in-law got it for him. Oof, it's like a Lord of the Rings adventure game.
Lord of the Rings is actually a good example of, because there's been a ton of games that have come out as that's been popular from the movies and stuff like that, but it wasn't really until, if I'm wrong about this, send us an email, saveoveruniverse@gmail.com, but like, to my mind, it didn't come into its own until Shadow of Mordor.
Right.
When they were like, okay, we're going to be in the universe, we're going to make a really damn good game.
Yeah.
And then that was it was a great game.
Yeah, they've even been, from what I understand, like, and I'm a Lord of the Rings fan, but I haven't played those yet.
Yeah. You didn't play Shadow of Mordor?
I haven't played it.
I heard the second one was good, but not as good, and then they had a little bit of loot boxy kind of crap controversy that went along with it.
Yeah.
But Shadow of Mordor, if you get the Game of the Year edition and all that stuff, it's fantastic.
That's
dude.
one of
It's
the ones I still
game.
plan on going back and playing.
Yeah.
Well, and I think it's all canon, which is kind of cool. Like, I think they've actually used like real Tolkien lore.
Right.
And, like, it doesn't contradict stuff in the movies from what I understand.
But they made it, I saw, portmanteau. We haven't done a portmanteau in a while.
Yeah.
A sidequel.
A sidequel?
It's a story that's off to the side that's parallel to the events of something, but it's not actually the thing. So like the Blade Runner PC game from the late 90s was a sidequel. It was like another Blade Runner who hunted down stuff, and it was like, it kind of intersected the main Blade Runner story from the movie here and there, but it was considered a sidequel.
I think the Back to the Future game is supposed to be like that too.
Okay, see, and I think that's a good approach. Set it in the universe, make it make sense along with what has happened and what you know and love in the movie, but then let it be its own thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, I think that's all I had. I mean, you're right. Lord of the Rings games have been all over the board. Shadow of Mordor is probably a good example of one that's decent. I can tell you War in the North.
Not good.
No, I think I called it War of the North. Or something like that.
It's kind of a mouthful.
Yeah. War of the North. Lord of the Rings, War of the North, I think is its full title. And it's funny because it even has the Witch King on the cover, and it looks like the Lich King from World of Warcraft.
Yeah.
It was not good. There's really cheesy lines. It's supposed to be a sidequel, but it fails. The human is the only cool character you can be. I got stuck being the dwarf because it wasn't my game, and he has all kinds of doofy lines in it, and it's just it was no good. Those are the ones that come to mind as my worst experiences. Yeah.
Yeah. I wish I had more. I kind of did favorites, and I didn't really go through and do too many.
You're a cup half full guy.
That's
weird.
Yeah.
You're not normally like that.
Hey, that's rude. One of my other favorites, though, and I think this is a good example, again, of one final example of like doing it right, was the Die Hard trilogy game. And it was actually 3 games in one. And so they took the whole trilogy, and then the first one was like a third-person shooter when you're in Nakatomi Plaza Tower. Yeah. Like shooting and saving hostages and going floor by floor. And it was a great, like, level-by-level type, like 3D platformy kind of feeling thing.
Yeah.
And it was great. And then the other one was like a laser light gun where you're at the airport, because that was the Die Hard 2 one, and you're shooting with an awesome laser light gun. Super underrated. We need to do an episode about that.
Yeah.
And then the third one was a driving game, because remember they're in the taxi cab in the one with Samuel L. Jackson, right? And then the guy who did Jeremy Irons was the bad guy. Yep. Great movie. But they did a driving game version of that. So you got 3 very different games all in one, and each captured the spirit of each movie in a completely different way. And I thought that was such a cool way to be like what we're talking about. Like, hey, we can't make it shot for shot Die Hard 1, 2, 3, but we can capture the spirit in different types of gameplay and do it this way. And it was great. It won like best action game of the year from like Electronic Gaming Monthly way back in the day and stuff.
That's a pretty cool idea.
It was a fantastic, and I've never seen anything like that where it's one thing that makes sense together, but it's 3 very different things. I have never, to my mind, I haven't seen anything like that ever before.
That's interesting. I have noticed, I guess more modern wise too, a little bit of a trend in arcade games.
Right.
Of just being like shoot 'em up, because that's all the genre is, and it's just loosely based in the world. Like I played one with my son that was like a Transformers one. And
Yeah.
There was a Kung Fu Panda where you're just hitting pads. That's the arcade game. There's like six pads.
It's like a reaction thing. Yeah, those are great.
So I think maybe that's a pretty appropriate place for those types of games too, because you're just going to pump in some quarters. So you don't need really a story.
Yeah.
You're really only there for the fun setting and some tight mechanics.
Right.
You're willing to just mindlessly throw in quarters and shoot shit. So I think that's been kind of cool, but I think arcades are starting to up their games too. Like with the Halo arcade coming out.
It does seem like they're having a little bit of a comeback. Do you think? Like they sort of, like there was a heyday and then they kind of went away and now it seems like people are wanting to be out and about again.
Yeah, we should maybe do an episode on that. Because there's been like the Star Wars Battle Pod was really cool.
Yes.
It was a really kick-ass
The Mario Kart version of the arcade version of Mario Kart is fantastic as well.
Yeah, and it's got exclusives that are only in the arcade version, right? Because I played the deluxe one all the time, and I was like, who the fuck? Oh, you can be that guy? I don't understand. There was a Sonic Mario Olympics arcade game that was pretty cool. Yeah, all kinds of cool stuff. So it does kind of feel like they're making a comeback, because these cabinets are impressive. Like, they look like they're expensive.
Yeah, it's no longer just the rectangle with a little cutout of a screen and a stick and a button. Yeah.
Right, these things are huge with like amazingly backlit whatever, but they're based on video games and movies mostly. So
Jurassic Park, actually, speaking of that, has done some really cool ones. You're has the curtains on the side and you go in dark, and it has like all the rumble and the move and the surround sound, and you're shooting dinosaurs and stuff.
And I think those are closer to like maybe what developers used to have in mind of like, well, we want big, loud, scary, make it a video game, and I think it works maybe a little better in the arcade side.
It has a little bit more of that theater experience that way.
So I think that's kind of a fun way of exploring that, and maybe I think there'll continue to be cool ones like coming out in the future.
Any closing thoughts?
No, other than our kids don't realize how good they have it. I mean, I still cringe sometimes when I see them, even if it's like, oh, this is really well received and well reviewed. I'm like, I don't think I can do it. Like, there's an amazing Spider-Man 2 video game that my kids love Spider-Man, and I cannot buy it, even though it got okay reviews. And
I would say that the games based on movies overall seems to be more successful than movies based on games. Like,
that's a low bar, though, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. But like, for whatever reason, it seems like developers are more adept at looking at what makes a movie good and bringing it over to an interactive, fun to play thing.
Yeah.
Game developers seem to be better at that than Hollywood is at being like, people love this game, let's and they fuck it up. It seems like more often.
It's a short list of, like, as we discussed in that past episode about movies based on video games. That's a short list.
And even the ones that are like, quote, good are not great. They're like acceptably palatable.
But even though there's not a lot of amazing video games based on movies, there's a fair amount of decent ones.
I mean, like, the fact that Goldeneye did more than the movie. Like, how many?
Yeah.
Like, it grossed more than the movie. Yeah.
Really?
And so I don't know. I think there are more success stories going that way. And I find that interesting. Does that I don't know if it makes the game developers like better storytellers necessarily, but
well, they just have to be more dynamic, I think.
Yeah.
Because technology is always changing. What you can do in the medium is a lot. Maybe. I mean, maybe we're biased on the video game side, but I would agree with you. I just think they have to be more adept at storytelling and how they're going to do it than maybe Hollywood does.
And maybe they just have more of that at being programmers and coders and those kinds of things, especially in the old days.
Yeah.
They had that more of like a problem solver mindset. Like, okay, we can't do XYZ, but we can solve this problem this way. More so than Hollywood, where it's like, let's just throw money at this thing and market it well and we'll call it a day.
Yeah, that's true. That's a good point.
Thank you for listening to Save Every Universe. If you enjoyed this episode, please go give us a review on iTunes. You can also support us on patreon.com/Save Every Universe.
And if you'd like to write us about your favorite video games that were based on movies, or tell us what some of your worst experiences.
Yeah, send us some more about the worst ones. We didn't talk about that.
We can be a shoulder to cry on. Yeah. And you can reach us at saveeveryuniverse, that's one word, @gmail.com.